Welcome to Stardust Stereo. I'm Parker McPhinney. I'm your host. Today is the 3rd of June, year 2025. And today I'm going to speak on Jupiter entering Cancer, which it will do on the 9th at 2:01 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. If you live elsewhere, you will have to do the math. Jupiter will stay in the zodiac placement of Cancer until August 1st, 2026. Now, when the vast planet of Jupiter enters into the zodiac placement of Cancer, which is a water sign, it's an action sign, and it's full of feelings and motherhood and the family. It's all about bringing protection and security to your life in a very big way. Security and the home and the family is going to be the top-notch ingredients that is the umbrella for people for the next 13 months. Jupiter stays in the same zodiac placement for approximately 12 months to 13 months every year. 12 years ago, 2013, Jupiter was in Cancer. You might do a reflection back, what changed in your life. I do this exercise, and if you journal or you have a really super great memory, often you will see interesting parallels, not exactly the same, but interesting parallels that can come up. The same planet entering the sign it was in a previous decade. I was sort of fascinated because as I went through some of my astrological notes, I realized I started some home projects that were very creative and they were dealing with very personal arts and crafts. I began a jewelry business. I started making my own soap. It's fascinating to me how astrology can reflect as above, so below. Even though every time that Jupiter enters the sign of Cancer, it's going to be slightly different because there's other configurations in the sky with the outer planets throwing an influence to that Jupiter in Cancer. And this time, this go around, Neptune, the planet of spirituality, and Saturn, the planet of structure, are in a tense square to that Jupiter in Cancer. This indicates a reworking of how we express the passion about our faith and our beliefs. There can be possibly some caution about expressing it. As we look to the newspapers, we see a lot of animosity to certain groups, and it makes them fearful to express their religious beliefs because not everybody's happy. Some people, unfortunately, take deep offense to how you may have a relationship with God if it's different from how they have a relationship with God. I've never quite understood that. I think any thinking person has a struggle with that as well. But now, with Jupiter entering Cancer, it is the time to embrace our belief system, to go deeper into it, to fuel it with great emotion and passion, and create a solid protective layer around it. Perhaps you might not broadcast it as much, but you make it deeper for you inside. Jupiter loves to be in the sign Cancer. It's exalted because Cancer represents birth and nourishment. And Jupiter, the planet Jupiter, is all about how we grow and become more of who we are. The zodiac sign blends well with that planet, Jupiter. Jupiter also deals with exercise. So during this 13-month period, it would be great to make plans for an exercise program, but it would have one ingredient that is so necessary for you to go way forward with it, and that would be that you emotionally like the exercise that you're doing. It feels fulfilling to you, not something that's arduous. We are going to see the birth rate increase. In America, the United States of America, there's a big push for more babies. We need more babies to keep this world going. Well, we're going to get those babies, let me tell you. Astrologically speaking, I can see quite clearly that 9 months from when Jupiter enters Cancer this summer, next spring, we are going to see an increase in birth. I have no doubt about it. There's a second indicator of this. Currently, Saturn and Neptune are in the fire sign of Aries, and they will be in a tense relationship with that Jupiter in Cancer. So sometimes that can bring a little bit of a delay about that decision to start a family, maybe being way too practical and how can we afford it during times of stress and uncertainty. Financially, we may not think that we can afford a extension in our family, but the secondary consideration is expanding the family brings greater protection within the family, and it brings greater happiness within the family. So if you're inclined to procreate, and that's your dream, once you get past any fears, and I think that this will happen very readily this summer, there will be great bliss in making that decision to expand your family. Saturn and Neptune will both retrograde back into the sign of Pisces. So during the months of September through February, that's when that Piscean energy will be throwing a positive influence with the Cancer in Jupiter. Much celebration, much feeling of this is a guided divine intervention. You know, giving birth is the highest form of creativity that exists for us humans, literally. There is nothing you can do more creatively than give birth to another human being. Not everybody's meant to be a physical mother, but we are all mothers. We are all mothers to ourselves. And so this Jupiter in Cancer is another signature message of learn to mother yourself. Feed yourself well, nourish yourself well, both spiritually and with food. Jupiter in Cancer represents the long table, the family reunion with lots of variations of food. Now, in certain parts of the world right now, people are not having that experience, and I think that it is an atrocity. I have hope, being a forever optimist, that in those parts of the world where people are truly on the verge of starvation, that may humanity reach up and change this pathway and create and make decisions that allow for every human being to have the food that they need to sustain this body. An interesting thing about Cancer, it's represented by the crab. And I don't know if you've ever seen a crab, but I was in Mexico several decades ago and sitting out, and I did notice a crab under the table. I was like, oh my goodness, there's a crab. And oh my gosh, it's going sideways. It's not moving directly. Crabs don't move directly. They move very carefully and sideways. And of course, being an astrologer, I was like, oh, that's just like the sign Cancer. They don't do things necessarily directly, they do them indirectly. They get needs met indirectly. They take care of their family indirectly. Very often, if they need something, and they might be shy about asking it, they'll still get it. But they're not going to go out there boldly like an Aries would. So, with Jupiter being in the sign of Cancer, we will see a lot of shuffling of people getting things done indirectly and in ways that are actually appearing to be reverse, but in the ultimate end, they achieve the goals. This is also about protecting your beliefs. It's about ritualism within the family for unity and growth. It's about emotionally digging deeper into your particular faith and belief. And by doing that, you're living in a more stronger sense of security. And there's no protection on earth greater than spiritual protection. I also believe that because the sign Cancer deals with the female, we are going to see fashion take a turn, and the curvy gal is going to become popular again. The hips, because Jupiter rules the hips. So when Cancer's entering that sign of Jupiter, we just might see a strong focus on the hip line. Hug hippers. I have noticed that pants are getting wider. And this is doubly so because the moment that Jupiter enters Cancer, the moon will be in Sagittarius, which also deals with the hips. And the relationship between that moon in Sag and Jupiter in Cancer is called mutual reception. It is very much like a conjunction. Now, those of you who are not astrological savvy might get a little lost, so I'll try to break this down. Mutual reception is when two planets are in each other's home sign. And when that happens in the chart configuration, it's called mutual reception. And what happens is it acts out like a conjunction. So it acts out like the moon and Jupiter are holding hands, even if they're not. So this Jupiter in mutual reception with the moon happens in the chart when the moment it enters Cancer, but also every month when the moon goes into Sagittarius, it will be again in relationship of mutual reception with Jupiter. And that is a very lucky aspect. So what I would suggest is you mark your calendar on the days each month. There will be 2 days, 2.5 days, when the moon goes through the sign of Sag. And while Jupiter is in Cancer, when that moon goes into Sag, you save those dates, if at all possible, to do the tasks that may normally give you trouble because you will have the luck of mutual reception with the moon and Jupiter. Also, on those days, if you have big meetings or you have to deal with people that you traditionally may not see eye to eye, that would also be an excellent time to schedule those tough talk days. Another little interesting tidbit about Cancer is that it has a shell, a hard shell, but really it's a softie because it's totally about feelings and emotions. As Jupiter goes through the sign of Cancer, treaties and the church and high officials in treaty, trade, import, export organizations may talk tough, but when the end of the day comes and the cows come home, as we say in the South, when the cows come home, a deal will be made. And a lot of people will be shocked because they're not looking past that hard exterior to see the softness inside that is capable of making a compromise. We will see a lot of ancestry investigation going on in the next 13 months because Cancer deals with the past. And so there will be a curiosity about our families that lived hundreds of years ago and the lineage from where we come. You know, the world actually becomes very small when we learn to focus on the basics that everybody needs and how we're so much more alike than different. And that's basically food, shelter, love, nourishment. Cancer represents so much of that. The motherly love, how we give motherly love if we weren't born in a family situation, how we give motherly love to ourselves, to our neighbors, to our friends. And I just flashed, I do think that the women are going to make headway in the church and have more rights in being able to facilitate decisions within the church as it is right now. Now, I don't think that there's going to be a female pope, no, but I do believe that the female factor within church organizations, Jupiter rules the church organizations, is going to become predominantly much more visible. In September this year, Mars in the sky is going to square Jupiter. This is going to be extremely important for the United States of America. As a matter of fact, Jupiter entering into Cancer is extremely important for our birth chart because we have both Venus at 2 degrees Cancer, Jupiter at 5 degrees Cancer, almost 6, and the Sun at 13 Cancer, and Mercury at 24 degrees Cancer. The United States of America is a very Cancerian country. It is having what we call Jupiter return very shortly after the 9th. Just like a couple of weeks later, it'll be having, might even be less than a couple of weeks. I don't have it in front of me. It is having what's called a Jupiter return. And that means a review and a new cycle of our faith within the country, our trade agreements within the country, and then also education, because Jupiter rules education. This is why I believe that homeschooling for particular subjects may take up speed again. So Jupiter represents more. Cancer is about feeling. I say to everybody, find more feeling, get in touch with your feelings, find more of the mother within yourself, learn to express that for yourself and then to others while we have Jupiter traveling through Cancer this next 13 months. I will probably be speaking again about this particular entrance because it is so very important. And it's joyful. And it's about picnics. And it's about building a secure home. Like I said, housing is going to increase. I think that there's going to be a big push for building and possibly strong focus on ADUs, little houses behind the houses. Also during this period, we will see more travel done within the home country rather than abroad, especially at the beginning of this transit of Jupiter in Cancer. People do make travel abroad. It would be under a situation of going back to their homeland, at their roots or where they were born, and if they were born overseas, having an urge to go back to the place where they were born. Jupiter in Cancer represents the tide in, the tide out. This also indicates that the moods that we have day in, day out will be stronger tides, stronger moods, stronger attachments. For the other water signs, Scorpio and Pisces, this movement into Cancer will give you wonderful flowing aspect. It depends on the individual configuration of your chart, just how flowing. Astrology is so very complicated and layered. But in general, it should be fairly easy for you to get in touch with your deep faith. For the air signs, they don't flow quite as readily with the Cancer energy, the water energy. They're much more intellectual. So this gives you a time to really tap into those emotions, which sometimes might be scary. For the fire signs, it can create steam. And for the earth signs, that's a beautiful combination because earth contains the water. Water is the same whatever container it goes into. But in order to be held, it has to have a container. So I wish for you during these 13 months, you are able to contain the good emotions that you feel for yourself and for the world. And that you have a sense of being protected and cared for and nourished. I'm Parker McPhinney. This is Stardust Stereo. I'd like to thank you for listening. I'd like to mention a thank you to my patrons. You know who you are. If you'd like to become a patron, you can do so at patreon.com/ParkerMcP. And I want to remind you, you are made of stardust. So go shine.